Hey everybody, I'm George Connolly from Scratch Golf Tips, and one of the most frequent questions I get asked, especially on the Instagram page, is about club fittings. Should I get my clubs fit? Is it worth it? How expensive is it? So I thought I'd make a video that is all-encompassing on what a club fitting is, why you should get one, who should get one, how expensive they are, alternatives, all of that and more in this video. So let's start off by just describing the club fitting process in general because it may be foreign to some people. A club fitting is when you generally go to an indoor launch monitor, meaning a monitor you put behind your ball, you hit balls and it gives you all kinds of stats, and you go through all of your clubs if you're doing a full bag club fitting. We'll talk about different kinds of club fittings later on, but if you're doing a full bag club fitting, you'll hit your 9-iron a bunch of times, you'll get that data, and then your club fitter, who you're paired with, an individual with a lot of knowledge on it, who will assign you different clubs, he'll play with different grips, he'll play with different shafts, flexes, and club heads, and you'll see what produces the best outcome for each of your clubs. So you're hitting your normal clubs to see, a point of where you are at, and then you're adjusting clubs to seeing how you can improve certain areas. Now, what those areas entail of depends on the skill level of the player. Generally, if a beginner gets a club fitting, you're not focused on the nitty-gritty, very analytical things. What you're focused on as a beginner is some more general aspects of the club, like what kind of grip you want, what kind of grip size you want, as well as the length of clubs. That's another big thing that a lot of people don't think about. The length of the clubs is very important. You also may look at some more specific things like the lie angle or the bounce of the club if you're looking at wedges. But generally speaking, it's not too easy for a beginner to enter a club fitting and get very good results from it. And the reason for that is because a beginner doesn't have a very consistent golf swing. If you're maybe a 25 handicap, the swing you have one day may be very different than the swing you have the next day. There's a lack of consistency there that will negatively affect your club fitting because you're gonna show up to a club fitting, the fitter can only fit you for the swing that you are swinging during that fitting. So if you get fit for a swing and you're gonna continue to improve your swing, say you have a couple tendencies you're not a fan of, and you want to switch them in the next couple weeks, couple months, you want to change your swing entirely, don't get fit if you're in that spot in your game. It doesn't make any sense to get fit for a swing you're just going to change in a couple months. So right off the bat, I would not recommend someone who's a 30 handicap who really wants to get better at golf by changing their swing. You should not get fit for clubs. Rather, you should get fit for clubs if you like where your swing's at. You're going to make some small tweaks, but you think that an improvement in equipment is going to help you out. Obviously, if you're a 10 handicap, you're not going to get fitted for clubs and instantly become a 5 handicap. Equipment isn't that successful, but it will help you generally dial in your game a little bit more and be fit exactly for what you're swinging. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it's definitely a step that everyone can take to have that edge. Now, if you're more of an intermediate player, you're not quite an expert or you're not quite that beginner, you're going to focus on all of the same things as the beginner fitting that I just went over will look at, but you'll also notice other things like feel. Feel in the club is something that a beginner might not have because they don't have too much experience with certain clubs, certain types of play, but an average player will have that. So going through the bag and saying, hey, this club may get me a little bit farther, my 7-iron will go 5 yards farther, but I don't like the feel of it as much. I don't like the sound of it. I don't like the way it feels on my hands. You can play around with that, and that's something that an average or even better player can have command over during a fitting. And then a really good golfer, a single handicap or better, what they'll look for in a fitting is very analytical. They want to know exactly how far clubs will carry. They want to know the launch angle, the descent angle. There are so many specific numbers and metrics that you can collect on the golf swing, especially in a golf fitting, that are so important to know. For a great golfer, you don't want to enter that fitting saying, hey, I want my irons to go as long as possible. Maybe you want your irons to stay the same distance so that you don't have to recalibrate your game. But what you're going to do instead is look for an iron that will keep that distance at a higher ascent angle, so the ball will land higher, and a descent angle, which the descent angle is the angle at which your ball lands on the ground. So it's those really particular aspects of your game that a greater golfer can really focus on during a club fitting. So we just spoke about what it will look like for a beginner, average, and better golfer and what they will look for in a club fitting, but let's talk about price point because that's something that a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about in a club fitting. Many people are of the belief that a club fitting is just a lot of money, and it can be, but there are different ways that you can approach it that I'll talk about right now. So first of all, a club fitting could be just one club fitting. It doesn't have to be a full bag. So you can get your driver fit. A lot of people will get a 3-wood fit, maybe a hybrid fit. Putter fittings are popular. Generally, you don't get one iron fit. It's usually a full iron set unless you want to maybe get a long iron. But there are a number of ways you can do it. If you want to get just a driver fit, that could be $100, maybe $150 for that driver fitting alone. If you're looking at a wood or a putter, those are generally about $100 too. Again, these are general prices. It could vary if you're going to Dick's or a Golf Tech. It varies dependent on where you're going. If you get a full iron fitting, that could normally be about $200, it could be more. And a full bag fitting, it really varies. It could be $200, it could be up to $400, depending on the facilities that you're using. But it is very important to note that if you go into a full bag fitting and you get all of these clubs fit, and say the bill is $300, if you buy all of the equipment recommended to you in that fitting, oftentimes the person who fit you and the company that did that fitting will take that fitting price off of the equipment you buy. So for an example, if I get fit for irons and it costs $200 to get the fitting and I'm recommended a $900 set of irons, they won't have me pay $1,100 for the fitting and the irons. If I buy the irons, they'll just give me the irons that they specially fit for me. This works out well because you get a discount and the company that fit you gets the revenue brought in from the clubs, which is where all of the money is made. And speaking of price on the equipment especially, you've probably seen it, new drivers, they're coming out probably twice a year from the big brands like TaylorMade, Titleist, Callaway. If you're getting a new driver with a custom grip, custom shaft, that club alone, just the driver, will probably cost you $500 or more. If you get fit for it, it'll be about $150. But in a fitting, it doesn't have to be, hey, this is the one club that you want. You can enter that fitting saying, listen, I like great clubs, but I don't want to spend $600 on a driver. Can we maybe look for something in the $300 range? And then your fitter will obviously take that information into mind and fit you differently and inside of that price range. I think the number one thing if you want to be successful in a club fitting is you need to go in with some expectation. You can't say, okay, here are my clubs, fit me. You need to say, listen, here are my clubs, these are the clubs I like, this is what I like about those clubs, these are the clubs I don't like, here's what I want to change. Now, things you want to change could be anything. It could be you just have old clubs. It could be you don't like the grip size. Maybe you're hitting a regular shaft and you really feel like you should be hitting a stiff shaft, steel, graphite. There's a bunch of different things that you can go into a fitting knowing and wanting to change. It is also important to note that if you do want to change equipment or mix things up a little bit, you don't have to go in for a full bag fitting. Maybe you really want to get the driver done. So you fit for just the driver, you get a new driver, but your irons aren't really cutting it. You don't have to scrap everything. There are simple adjustments that you can make that will still cost you money, obviously, but they won't cost as much as a bag fitting. Things as simple as changing the grips on your clubs. A lot of people like to change that, especially with putters. I just made a video on putter grips, so you can watch that in the little card up at the top of the screen. Changing your putter grip can be big. You can also change out the heads on clubs. You can also change out the shafts. That stuff is all very important. It won't break the bank as much as getting everything redone. So after knowing all this information, if you do want to go in for a club fitting, understand that they are very beneficial, but it's not all in the fitter's hands. I think it is so important that you leave that fitting not only with the equipment, but a better understanding of your game on an analytical level. Now, I'm not saying you're going to have access to a TrackMan at all times so that you can always analyze your numbers, but having that conceptual knowledge of, hey, my irons are launching a little bit too low, let me work on that in my practice, that's going to benefit you so much more than just saying, hey, I've got new clubs, they're going to do the work for me. You have new clubs, great, they're tailored for your swing, it's going to help you, believe me. But if you get those new clubs and you have a better knowledge of what you need to do with those clubs, that's when the improvement really comes. That's when you see those digits start falling off of your handicap. So in your fitting, you need to be proactive. The people who are fitting you love their job. They like what they do. And any person I've spoken to, they like it. They like it when you ask questions. If they'll spit a lot of numbers at you. They always do. They get a bunch of numbers. Ask, hey, what does this number mean? How can I change this number in my swing? They're happy to answer all those questions. That's what they're there for. And frankly, that expertise is part of what you're paying for when you're going in for the fitting. So to summarize, you need to understand where you're at with your game. Should you get a fitting or not? What should you get fit? And that's all knowledge that you can just step back from it, say, hey, this season, I really struggled with this. And it's not even about struggling, it's about I don't think this equipment is right for me. You can get a brand new Titleist driver and it's just not fit for you, so you won't play it well. And then you can get a TaylorMade driver from 15 years ago and it is fit for you well. You just need to understand what equipment is holding you back. So once you decide that you want to go in for that fitting, go in with questions. Go in with an understanding of your game and go in with inquiries for that fitter. It's going to help them help you as much as possible. I hope this helped. I respond to all comments and all messages sent to me, so you can comment down below any questions you have. I'm happy to answer them. You can also send any messages to any of the Scratch Golf Tips social media platforms or email me at scratchgolftips@mail.com. If you like any of the apparel I wear in these videos, I wear John Morgan Sportswear. Their link will be in the description. They are a supporter and partner of Scratch Golf Tips, so any support you give them supports me as well. If you want to buy your FlightScope Mevo, which is a personal launch monitor similar to a TrackMan, the link will be in the description. You can use code SGT50, and that'll get you $50 off your order as well as free shipping. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. Play well and take care.